The massive oak doors of the grand hall exploded inward with a force that shook the chandeliers. Every head turned. Every conversation died mid-sentence. The orchestra's strings went silent, bows frozen in mid-air. Even the flames in the grand hearth seemed to flicker and dim as if the very air had been sucked from the room. Alpha King Liam stood in the doorway. But this wasn't the composed, regal king who had greeted his guests hours earlier. His ceremonial wedding cloak, white silk embroidered with silver wolves, hung in tatters from his shoulders. Snow clung to his dark hair, melting into rivulets that mixed with something darker. Blood. His chest heaved with ragged breaths, muscles taut beneath his torn shirt, and his eyes, those legendary amber eyes that could command armies, were wild with something between fury and desperation. But it wasn't the Alpha King that made 600 guests freeze in collective shock. It was what he carried in his arms. A woman. Barely breathing. Her body limp and broken, wrapped in what looked like chains, thick, rusted iron links that had been snapped apart by bare hands. Her skin was deathly pale against the crimson stains on her tattered dress, bruises blooming across exposed flesh like dark flowers. Matted auburn hair fell across her face, but even through the dirt and blood, even after 2 years of mourning her death, everyone in that hall knew exactly who she was. Luna Mia. The maid who had vanished without a trace. The woman they'd held funeral rites for. The ghost who had just walked back into the kingdom on her wedding day, his wedding day to another woman. Hey there, beautiful souls, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome to the pack. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Drop a comment below and let me know, where in the world are you watching from? I love connecting with you all, and I read every single comment. And listen, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button right now because trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next in this story. This one's going to tear your heart out and put it back together again. I promise you that. Now, let's get back into this moment, because everything, and I mean everything, is about to change. In the front row of the grand hall, draped in yards of ivory silk and lace that had cost more than most houses in the outer territories, Lady Seraphine stood frozen at the altar. Her bouquet of moonflowers trembled in her hands. The high priestess beside her had gone completely white, her ceremonial chalice tilting dangerously as her grip faltered. And behind them, the elders' table, 12 ancient wolves who had pressured this union into existence, erupted into chaos. Chairs scraped back. Voices rose in sharp, desperate whispers. But Liam didn't look at any of them. His eyes, those wolf gold eyes that had been empty for 2 years, that had learned to smile without meaning it, that had looked at Seraphine with gentle resignation but never love, were locked on the broken woman in his arms. Mia, he whispered, and the name cracked like a prayer. Like a curse. Like both. Her eyelids fluttered. Just barely. Enough to reveal a sliver of green, that impossible forest green that he'd seen every night in his dreams, in his nightmares, in the spaces between heartbeats where he still reached for her across an empty bed. Liam. The word was barely a breath. Confused. Distant. As if she was speaking from the bottom of a very deep well. His arms tightened around her, and something in his chest that had been frozen solid for 24 months shattered. I've got you, he said, his voice raw. I've got you. You're safe now. You're home. Behind him, the snow continued to fall through the open doors, white flakes drifting into the warmth of the hall like ghosts at a wedding that would never be. Somewhere in the crowd, a woman sobbed. Somewhere else, a man cursed. And at the altar, Lady Seraphine's bouquet hit the marble floor with a soft, final sound. 3 hours earlier, the day had been perfect. Or at least, it had looked perfect. The grand hall had been transformed into something out of a fairy tale, which was exactly what the elders wanted. White roses cascaded from every pillar. Crystal chandeliers threw prisms of light across polished marble floors. The guests wore their finest, silk and velvet in deep jewel tones, ancient family crests glittering on formal jackets, the scent of expensive perfume and old magic mixing in the air. Outside, the first snow of winter had begun to fall, dusting the palace grounds in pristine white. Inside, Alpha King Liam had stood in his private chambers, adjusting his ceremonial cloak with hands that didn't shake, because he'd learned how to control them, how to control everything, in the 2 years since his world had ended. "You look good, brother." Theo stood in the doorway, his beta and closest friend, trying to smile. Trying to make this feel normal. Real. Right. "I look like a man getting married," Liam had replied, his voice flat. "That's literally what you are doing in," Theo checked his watch, 45 minutes. "I know what I'm doing." "Do you?" Theo moved into the room, lowering his voice even though they were alone. "Because you haven't said her name once today. Not once. You keep calling her the bride or Lady Seraphine, or just avoiding it entirely." Liam's jaw tightened. "What do you want me to say, Theo?" "I want you to tell me you're not making the biggest mistake of your life." "The biggest mistake of my life was letting Mia go out that night without me." The words came out sharp. Controlled. Like he'd practiced them 1,000 times. The second biggest was believing the search parties when they said there was no hope. The third was waiting 2 years to move on. And now I'm fixing that mistake. The kingdom needs a Luna. The pack needs stability. The elders need. Fuck what the elders need. Theo's eyes flashed wolf gold for just a second. "What do you need?" Liam had turned away from his beta then, staring out the window at the snow. At the forest beyond the palace walls. At the territories where search parties had combed every inch of ground until the trails went cold and the hope died and they'd finally stopped looking. "I need her to be alive," he'd said quietly. "I need to wake up and have the last 2 years be a nightmare. I need my mate back. But she's not coming back. No." Liam's reflection in the window looked like a stranger. Hollow. Going through motions. "She's not. So you're going to marry Seraphine?" "Yes. And you'll never love her." Liam had turned back to face his beta, and his expression was empty. "No. I won't. But I'll be kind to her. I'll protect her. I'll give her every comfort. And maybe that will be enough." It wouldn't be enough. They both knew it. But neither of them said it out loud. 30 minutes before the ceremony, Lady Seraphine had stood in her own chambers, surrounded by handmaids who fussed with her dress and her hair and her jewelry. She'd looked beautiful. She'd looked terrified. "You're going to be a wonderful Luna," her mother had said, adjusting the diamond tiara that caught the light like ice. "The kingdom will love you." But will he? Seraphine hadn't asked the question. She already knew the answer. She'd known it from the first moment the elders approached her family with the proposal. From the first formal dinner where Liam had been polite, respectful, and completely emotionally unavailable. From every conversation where he'd looked at her with gentle fondness but never passion. Never fire. Never the bone-deep connection that legend said true mates shared. Because she wasn't his true mate. His true mate was dead. And Seraphine, kind, loyal, nobly born Seraphine, was the consolation prize. The practical choice. The woman who would stand beside a king who would never truly see her. But she'd accepted anyway. Because she'd loved him since she was 16 years old. Because maybe, just maybe, time would heal what fate had broken. Because the kingdom needed this, and Seraphine had been raised to put duty above everything else. Even above her own breaking heart. "You're trembling," one of the handmaids had said. Just nervous, Seraphine had lied. Just marrying a man who will never love me back. Just stepping into the shadow of a ghost. Just fine. She'd taken a deep breath, lifted her chin, and walked toward the grand hall like she was walking toward her execution. The ceremony had been scheduled to begin at sunset. The guests arrived in waves, alphas from neighboring territories, nobles from the oldest bloodlines, diplomats from distant pacts. They filled the grand hall with the rustle of expensive fabric and hushed conversations about politics and alliances and the whispered question no one dared ask too loudly. Is he really over her? The answer should have been yes. 2 years was long enough to grieve. Long enough to move on. Long enough to accept that some losses are permanent, some wounds never heal, and some loves end in blood and mystery and graves without bodies. But anyone who looked closely at Alpha King Liam as he took his place at the altar, spine straight, expression composed, hands clasped behind his back, would have seen the truth. He wasn't over her. He would never be over her. He'd just gotten very, very good at pretending. The orchestra began to play. The doors at the back of the hall opened. And Lady Seraphine appeared, a vision in white and diamonds, walking down an aisle lined with white roses and the weight of 600 stairs. She looked like a bride. She looked like a queen. She looked like everything the kingdom needed. Everything except the one thing Liam's wolf howled for in the hollow spaces of his chest. Asterisk not her. Not her. Not her, asterisk. But he'd silenced that voice months ago. He'd had to. Because Mia was gone. Mia was. Crash. The doors exploded inward. And suddenly, impossibly, she wasn't gone at all. The silence in the grand hall stretched like a living thing, thick, suffocating, impossibly fragile. Liam didn't move from the doorway. Couldn't move. His entire world had collapsed into the weight of the woman in his arms and the impossible reality that she was breathing. 2 years. 730 days of searching. Of false leads and cold trails. Of nights where his wolf clawed at his insides, desperate to find her scent on the wind. Of mornings where he woke reaching for her and found only empty sheets and the hollow ache of a bond that should have died with her but instead just hurt. And now she was here. Broken. Bleeding. But here. Your Majesty. Elder Tobias rose from his seat at the head table, his ancient face pale beneath his ceremonial robes. His voice cracked with shock. That cannot be. Luna Mia. The words came from somewhere in the crowd, a young wolf who'd been part of the original search parties, his voice raw with disbelief. Gods above, it's really her. The whispers started then. A ripple of shock spreading through 600 guests like wildfire through dry timber. Asterisk, impossible. Asterisk. Asterisk, she's alive. Asterisk. Asterisk, where has she been? Asterisk. The wedding. Oh gods, Lady Seraphine. Liam's eyes swept the room, landing on each face with predatory focus. His wolf surged just beneath his skin, protective and feral and ready to tear apart anyone who stood between him and getting Mia to safety. Clear the hall. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. Alpha command rippled through the air, making every wolf in the room instinctively straighten. Everyone out. Now. Your Majesty, surely we should, Elder Margaret began. I said out. The words came out as a growl, his eyes flashing full wolf gold. The guests moved. Chairs scraped. Footsteps echoed on marble. The nobles filed toward the side exits in a rustle of silk and shocked murmurs, casting backward glances at the scene that would fuel gossip for decades. But 3 people didn't move. Theo stepped forward from where he'd been standing near the altar, his beta instincts kicking in. Liam. Let me get the healers. She needs. I know what she needs. Liam's arms tightened fractionally around Mia, his body curving over hers protectively. Send for healer Nora. Tell her to meet me in the royal chambers. No one else. I don't trust anyone else. Theo nodded once and disappeared through a side door at a run. The second person who remained was Elder Tobias, who stood frozen between duty and shock. Your Majesty, we must discuss the wedding, the vows. Lady Seraphine has rights. Cancel it. Liam's voice was flat. Final. Cancel everything. But the contracts have been signed. The alliance with the Nightshade Pack. I don't give a damn about alliances. Liam turned his full attention to the elder, and something in his expression made the ancient wolf take an involuntary step back. My mate is alive. My true mate. The Luna this kingdom crowned and mourned. Do you really think I'm going to complete wedding vows to another woman while she's bleeding in my arms? Elder Tobias opened his mouth. Closed it. Decades of political maneuvering and careful control warred with the undeniable truth standing before him. The bond between true mates was sacred. Unbreakable. Even death couldn't sever it completely, which was why Liam had been half alive for 2 years, his wolf howling in the spaces where Mia should have been. And now she was back. The laws were clear. The bond took precedence. Always. The elders will convene, Tobias finally said, his voice stiff. There will be complications. There will be justice. Liam's tone dropped to something dangerous. Someone took her. Someone held her. And when I find out who, there won't be enough left of them to bury. He moved then, striding through the emptying hall toward the royal wing, his footsteps echoing on marble still scattered with white rose petals that were supposed to line his path to a different future. Behind him, forgotten at the altar, Lady Seraphine finally moved. She'd been standing motionless since the doors burst open, her bouquet at her feet, her diamond tiara catching the light like tears. Her handmaids hovered nearby, uncertain whether to approach or flee. My lady, one of them whispered. We should. Leave me. Seraphine's voice was barely audible. But. Leave me **. They scattered like birds, disappearing through the side exits until Seraphine stood alone in a hall that had been prepared for her wedding and was now the scene of its spectacular destruction. She should have felt anger. Betrayal. Righteous fury at being abandoned at the altar in front of everyone who mattered. But all she felt was a strange, hollow relief. Because she'd known. Deep down, in the places she didn't let herself look, she'd always known this marriage was built on the ghost of a woman who was supposed to be dead. And now the ghost had come back to life. Seraphine looked down at the moonflower bouquet lying broken on the marble. Then she turned and walked away from the altar, her wedding dress trailing behind her like a white flag of surrender. The royal chambers had never felt this small. Liam laid Mia on the massive four-poster bed, their bed, where he'd slept alone for 2 years, where her scent had faded until he could barely remember it, and for the first time since the doors burst open, he let himself truly look at her. And what he saw made his wolf snarl with murderous rage. Bruises. Everywhere. Purple and yellow and green, layered like grotesque paintings across her pale skin. Her wrists were raw and bleeding where the iron chains had bitten deep, the metal burns characteristic of silver-laced restraints designed to torture shifters. Her dress, if it could even be called that, was little more than rags, torn and stained with blood both dried and fresh. But it was her face that broke him. Gaunt. Hollow-cheeked. Her cheekbones too sharp, her skin stretched too thin. She'd lost at least 20 pounds, maybe more. Her auburn hair, once thick and glossy, hung in matted tangles. And when her eyes fluttered open, those green eyes he'd fallen in love with 5 years ago, they were clouded with pain and confusion. Where? Her voice was a rasp, her throat clearly damaged from screaming or dehydration or both. You're home. Liam knelt beside the bed, his hands hovering over her, desperate to touch but terrified of causing more pain. You're in the palace. You're safe. Her brow furrowed, confusion deepening. Palace? Something cold slid down Liam's spine. Mia. He kept his voice gentle, even as panic clawed at his chest. Do you know where you are? She stared at him, asterisk through asterisk him, and he watched her struggle to focus, to process, to remember. There was. Her breathing quickened, becoming shallow and panicked. Dark. It was so dark. And cold. And she gasped, her body jerking. They kept asking questions. About. Shoo. You don't have to remember right now. Liam reached out carefully, brushing a strand of matted hair from her face. The touch of her skin against his sent the mate bond flaring to life, a connection he'd thought was dying, suddenly roaring back with enough force to make him dizzy. His wolf howled in recognition and relief. Asterisk mate. Mate. Mate asterisk. But Mia flinched. She flinched away from him. Who are you? The words were small. Frightened. And Liam's world tilted sideways. Mia. It's me. It's Liam. He searched her eyes desperately, looking for recognition that didn't come. Your mate. I don't. She shook her head weakly, pain flashing across her features. I don't know you. The door burst open. Healer Nora rushed in, her medical bag already open, Theo close behind her. Out, Nora commanded immediately, taking in Mia's condition with one efficient glance. Both of you. I need space to work. I'm not leaving, Liam started. You are. Nora's tone brooked no argument. Because she's terrified, she's in shock, and having a strange man hovering over her is making it worse. Out. Theo's hand landed on Liam's shoulder, firm and grounding. Come on, brother. Let Nora work. Every instinct Liam possessed screamed at him to stay. To protect. To never let Mia out of his sight again. But Nora was right. Mia was looking at him with fear in her eyes, fear of him, and that was somehow worse than anything else. He let Theo pull him from the room. The door closed. And Liam stood in the hallway of his own palace, his wedding cloak still hanging in tatters from his shoulders, snow melting in his hair, blood drying on his hands. His mate was alive. His mate was home. His mate didn't remember him. What happened out there? Theo asked quietly. Where did you find her? Liam's jaw clenched. The old fortress. Past the northern border, in the Shadow Peak Mountains. That's unclaimed territory. Neutral ground. Not anymore. Liam's eyes flashed gold. Someone was using it. There were cells. Equipment. Signs of long-term captivity. His hands curled into fists. She was in the lowest level, chained to a wall. Alone. They'd left her there. Left her. Why would they? I don't know. But I'm going to find out. Liam turned to face his beta, and his expression was carved from stone and fury. Assemble the trackers. I want that fortress torn apart. I want every scent identified. I want to know who took her, who held her, and where the hell they are now. Consider it done. And Theo? Liam's voice dropped to something deadly quiet. When we find them, there won't be a trial. Inside the royal chambers, Healer Nora worked with swift, practiced efficiency, cleaning wounds and checking vitals while Mia drifted in and out of consciousness. But just before the sedative took full effect, Mia's eyes opened one more time. "The Alpha King," she whispered. "They kept talking about the Alpha King." Nora leaned closer. "Who did, sweetheart?" "The ones who took me." Mia's words slurred as sleep pulled her under. They said it wasn't over. That he'd never find." Her eyes closed. But Nora had heard enough. She opened the door to find both men exactly where she'd left them. "She's stable," Nora said quickly. "Malnourished, dehydrated, multiple injuries both old and recent. But she'll survive." "And her memory?" Liam's voice was rough. Nora hesitated. "It's too early to tell. The trauma, it could be temporary amnesia or something more permanent. We'll know more when she wakes." She said something before she passed out. Nora met Liam's eyes. She said they kept talking about the Alpha King. Past tense. Like her captors are gone. Or like they left her there to be found. Theo's voice was grim. The three of them stood in silence, the implications settling like stones. This wasn't over. Whatever had taken Mia 2 years ago, whatever had held her and broken her and finally released her. They'd let her go on purpose. The question was, why? 3 days passed like a fever dream. Mia woke in fragments, moments of clarity scattered between darkness and pain. Each time, healer Nora was there with gentle hands and soothing words. Each time, Liam stood in the doorway, close enough to respond if she needed him, far enough that he wouldn't frighten her. Each time, she looked at him like he was a stranger. And each time, it destroyed him a little more. "The physical wounds are healing," Nora reported on the third evening, finding Liam in his study where he'd been poring over maps and tracker reports. "The silver burns will scar, but her shifter healing is finally kicking in now that she's properly nourished." "And her memory?" Liam didn't look up from the map of Shadow Peak Mountains, where he'd marked the location of the fortress in red ink that looked too much like blood. "Still fragmented. She remembers pieces, her childhood, her family, some general knowledge. But you, the palace, your bond." Nora's voice softened with sympathy. "Nothing. It's like those 2 years before her disappearance have been completely erased." Liam's pen snapped in his grip. "There's something else." Nora moved closer, lowering her voice even though they were alone. "She's having nightmares. Wakes up screaming about darkness and chains and questions. She keeps saying, they kept asking questions but she can't remember what questions or who was asking. They tortured her for information." Liam's voice was flat, emotionless, the only way he could discuss it without losing complete control. What information could she possibly have that was worth 2 years of captivity? Maybe it wasn't about information. Theo appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. "Maybe it was about you." Both of them turned to face the beta. "The trackers returned an hour ago," Theo continued, stepping into the study and closing the door behind him. "They found something at the fortress. Journals. Records. Liam, this wasn't random. Mia was targeted specifically because she was your mate." The air in the room turned cold. "Show me." Theo laid out 3 leather-bound journals on the desk, their pages filled with meticulous notes in multiple handwritings. Liam's eyes scanned the entries, and with each line, his rage grew colder, sharper, more deadly. Subject shows continued resistance to separation trauma. Bond remains intact despite prolonged isolation. Asterisk, Alpha King has not taken another mate. Experiment continues, asterisk. They were studying the mate bond. Liam's voice was barely audible. They took her to see what would happen to me. To us. Not just studying it. Theo pointed to an entry near the end. Read this. Liam's eyes found the passage. Asterisk, Phase 1 complete. Subject has survived 2 years of captivity, confirming bond strength. Phase 2 initiated, memory suppression successful. Subject will be returned to Alpha King with no recollection of bond or captivity. Observation of reunion and bond reconstruction will provide valuable data for asterisk. The entry ended abruptly, the rest of the page torn out. They sent her back. Liam looked up, his eyes blazing gold. This was planned. They wanted me to find her like this. But why? Nora asked. What possible purpose? Control. The word came from the doorway. All 3 of them spun to find Mia standing there, wrapped in one of Nora's borrowed robes, her face pale but her eyes sharper than they'd been since she arrived. Mia. Liam moved toward her instinctively, then stopped himself. You should be resting. I should be remembering. She stepped into the study, her movements careful but determined. I heard you talking. About journals. About me being an experiment. You need to stay calm, Nora began. I've been calm for 3 days while strangers tell me I'm home in a place I don't recognize, that I'm mated to a man I don't remember, that I lost 2 years of my life to people who did this to me. Her voice shook but held firm. I think I'm done being calm. Liam stared at her, seeing a flash of the woman she'd been, fierce, brave, unwilling to be protected from hard truths. You're right, he said quietly. You deserve to know everything. He explained it all. The disappearance. The searches. The funeral. The 2 years of grief. The pressure from the elders to move on. Lady Seraphine. The wedding that never was. Mia listened without interrupting, her face unreadable. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. So I walked in and destroyed your wedding, she finally said. You walked in and came home. Liam's voice was rough with emotion. That's all that matters. Is it? Mia's green eyes met his, and he saw something complicated there, confusion, pain, and something that might have been guilt. You were moving on. You were about to marry someone else. And now I'm back and I don't even remember why I should matter to you. You matter because you're my mate. The words came out fierce, absolute. You matter because for 5 years, you were everything. You matter because when you disappeared, half of me died. You matter because I would burn this entire kingdom to ash if it meant keeping you safe. Mia flinched, not from fear this time, but from the intensity of emotion she couldn't reciprocate. I don't feel it, she whispered. This bond you keep talking about. I look at you and I see a stranger. A kind stranger, a beautiful stranger, but still, nothing. The words cut deeper than any blade. The bond is still there, Nora said gently. I can sense it, even if you can't feel it yet. Whatever they did to suppress your memories, it didn't break what you and Liam share. It just buried it. Then we dig it up. Mia lifted her chin, and Liam saw steel beneath the fragility. I want to know what happened to me. I want to know who did this. And I want to know why. Mia. Don't. She cut him off. Don't tell me it's too dangerous or that I should rest or that you'll handle it. They took my life. I'm getting it back. The next morning, everything changed. Liam had called an emergency council meeting, the elders, the lead trackers, Theo, and surprisingly, Mia, who'd insisted on being there despite Nora's protests. But there was one more person in attendance that no one had expected. Lady Seraphine. She entered the council chamber with her head held high, still dressed in mourning gray rather than the wedding white she'd never gotten to wear. Every eye turned to her, the tension in the room thickening like storm clouds. Lady Seraphine. Elder Margaret stood, her face carefully neutral. This is a private council matter. About the woman who replaced me at the altar. Seraphine's voice was calm, controlled. I think I have a right to be here. You have no rights here anymore, Elder Tobias said, though not unkindly. The wedding was annulled. The contracts voided. You are no longer. I know what I'm no longer. Seraphine's eyes found Liam across the room. But I know something about Luna Mia's disappearance. Something I should have told you 2 years ago. The room went silent. Liam rose slowly from his seat, his entire body coiled with tension. What do you know? Seraphine took a breath, and when she spoke, her voice trembled slightly. The night before Mia disappeared, I was at the palace for a diplomatic dinner. I saw her arguing with someone in the East Gardens. A woman I didn't recognize. Why didn't you report this? Theo's voice was sharp. Because I was a stupid, jealous girl who thought. Seraphine's composure cracked. I thought if Mia left on her own, maybe Liam would finally see me. I convinced myself it wasn't important, that it was just a personal dispute. By the time I realized how wrong I was, the funeral had already happened and I. Her voice broke. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Mia stood from her seat, moving toward Seraphine with surprising steadiness. This woman. Describe her. Tall. Dark hair. She wore a cloak with a silver clasp shaped like a crescent moon. Mia's face went white. I know that clasp, she whispered. I remember, in the darkness, someone wore that clasp. I couldn't see their face but the clasp caught the light and, she swayed suddenly, her hand going to her temple. Liam was at her side instantly, steadying her. Mia. She's waking up, Mia said, her voice distant, confused. The memories. They're starting to come back but they're all jumbled and. She gasped, her eyes going wide with sudden, terrible clarity. The questions, she breathed. They kept asking me questions about Project Nightfall. Every person in the room froze. What did you say? Liam's voice was deadly quiet. Project Nightfall. They kept asking what I knew about Project Nightfall. But I didn't, Mia looked up at him, desperate. What is Project Nightfall? Liam and Theo exchanged a look that made the air crackle with tension. It's classified, Theo said carefully. Top-level security. Only the Alpha King and his most trusted advisors even know it exists. It's our contingency plan, Liam added, his jaw tight. If the kingdom ever came under existential threat, from rogues, from a coup, from enemy packs, Project Nightfall is our last resort. It's a network of safe houses, weapons caches, loyal wolves in every territory, and a communication system that can't be intercepted. And if someone knew about it? Elder Margaret's face had gone gray. They could dismantle our entire defense structure from the inside, Theo finished grimly. Mia's hands were shaking. But I don't know anything about defense structures or safe houses or, how would I know about this? You wouldn't, Liam said softly. Unless. His eyes widened with sudden, horrifying understanding. Unless you overheard something, he finished. Mia, the night before you disappeared, I was in my study with Theo and the elders. We were discussing Project Nightfall's expansion. You came to the study to say goodnight, but I was in the middle of a classified briefing. I asked you to wait outside and the door was thin, Mia whispered, the memory coming back in fragments. I didn't mean to listen but I heard. I heard enough. Someone knew you'd overheard, Theo said, putting the pieces together. Someone at that meeting, or someone they told. They couldn't risk you telling anyone what you'd heard, so they took her, Liam finished, his voice like winter ice. They took her, locked her away, and spent 2 years trying to extract information she barely had. And when they couldn't break her, they sent her back with no memory. Seraphine's voice was hollow. To see if the bond would make her remember naturally. They're still watching. Still waiting. The implication settled over the room like a death shroud. Someone close to the Alpha King, close enough to be in classified meetings, close enough to know Mia had overheard, had betrayed them all. The traitor wasn't some distant enemy. They were right here. In the palace. Maybe even in this room. Liam's eyes swept across every face present, and his wolf snarled with the need to tear apart anyone who'd hurt his mate. Lock down the palace, he commanded. No one leaves. No one communicates with the outside. And someone get me the attendance records from that briefing 2 years ago. There were 12 people in that room, Elder Tobias said quietly. Including you, Theo, and 5 elders. Then we investigate all 12, Liam said coldly. Because one of them sold out their Luna. One of them is responsible for 2 years of torture. He turned to Mia, his expression softening just slightly. And one of them is about to learn what happens when you threaten an Alpha King's mate. Outside the council chamber windows, snow had begun to fall again. But this time, it looked less like a wedding and more like the calm before a war. The investigation consumed the palace like wildfire. For 5 days, Liam and Theo interrogated everyone who'd been in that classified briefing. They combed through communication records, travel logs, financial transactions, anything that might reveal who'd sold out their Luna. And they found nothing. Whoever the traitor was, they'd covered their tracks perfectly. Meanwhile, Mia's memories continued to return in jagged fragments, painful flashes that left her gasping and disoriented. She remembered the woman with the crescent moon clasp. She remembered a cell that smelled like rust and despair. She remembered voices asking the same questions over and over until they blurred together into white noise. But she still didn't remember Liam. She didn't remember their first meeting at the autumn festival, where he'd asked her to dance and she'd stepped on his feet 3 times. She didn't remember their mating ceremony under the full moon, with flower petals falling like snow and his vows whispered against her temple. She didn't remember the 1,000 small moments that built a love strong enough to survive 2 years of separation. All she had were the facts, told to her by strangers about a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. And it was killing both of them. You should eat something, Liam said quietly, finding her in the library where she'd taken to spending her afternoons, surrounded by books about mate bonds and memory magic, desperately searching for answers. Mia looked up from a leather-bound tome, and Liam saw the exhaustion carved into her features. I'm not hungry. Nora says you've lost more weight. Nora says a lot of things. Mia's voice held an edge she immediately regretted. I'm sorry. That was unfair. Everyone's been incredibly kind. You don't have to apologize for being frustrated. Liam stayed in the doorway, maintaining the distance that had become routine between them, close enough to talk, far enough that she didn't feel cornered. This situation is impossible. Is it? Mia closed the book, her green eyes meeting his. Because everyone keeps telling me how strong our bond is, how true mates are supposed to find each other across any distance, overcome any obstacle. But I look at you and I feel nothing. Maybe they broke something that can't be fixed. The words landed like physical blows. The bond isn't broken, Liam said, but even he could hear the doubt creeping into his voice. 5 days of watching her flinch from his touch, 5 days of seeing no recognition in her eyes, it was starting to erode even his certainty. It just needs time. How much time? Mia stood, her frustration spilling over. A week? A month? A year? Another 2 years? How long do we wait for me to magically remember loving you? As long as it takes. His voice was firm, but something flickered in his eyes, something that looked dangerously like despair. That's not fair to you. Mia moved closer, and Liam's breath caught because it was the first time she'd initiated any proximity. You deserve a mate who knows you. Who chooses you. Not someone going through the motions because a bond they can't even feel tells them they should. I don't want just any mate, Liam said roughly. I want you. But I'm not her anymore. Mia's voice cracked. The woman you loved, she's gone. Whatever they did to me in those 2 years, they didn't just take my memories. They took her. And I don't know if she's ever coming back. Before Liam could respond, Theo burst into the library, his face pale. We have a problem, he said. A big one. The council chamber was in chaos when they arrived. Elder Tobias stood at the head of the table, holding a letter sealed with black wax, his hands visibly shaking. The other elders were on their feet, voices raised in heated argument. What's happened? Liam demanded. Tobias held up the letter. This arrived an hour ago. It's from the Shadow Peak Conclave. The name sent ice down Liam's spine. The Shadow Peak Conclave, a coalition of rogue packs that operated in the unclaimed territories. They were mercenaries, assassins, and worse. Everyone knew they existed, but no one could touch them because they never stayed in one place long enough to be caught. What do they want? Liam asked, though he already knew. His wolf could sense it, danger, closing in like a noose. They want Luna Mia returned to them. Elder Margaret's voice was tight with barely controlled fear. They claim she's stolen property. That she was their subject, and that you removing her from their facility violated neutral territory laws. Neutral territory laws don't apply to kidnapping. Theo snarled. They have proof of purchase, Tobias said quietly, holding up another document. A bill of sale. Dated 3 days before Mia disappeared. Someone sold her to them, Liam. Someone sold your mate to the conclave for experimental purposes. The room spun. That's impossible, Mia whispered. No one can sell another person. It's illegal in pack territories, Elder Margaret explained, her voice hollow. But in neutral zones, the old laws still apply. And according to this document, Mia was sold legally under neutral territory jurisdiction. By who? Liam's voice was deadly quiet. Who signed that sale? Tobias met his eyes, and Liam saw his own horror reflected back. Lady Seraphine's father, Tobias said. Lord Marcus Ashwood. The silence that followed was absolute. No. Seraphine's voice came from the doorway. She stood there, her face ashen, shaking her head desperately. No, that's not possible. My father would never. Your father's signature is right here, Elder Margaret said, not unkindly. Along with proof of payment. 500,000 in gold, transferred to an offshore account registered in his name. Then it's forged. Seraphine moved into the room, her composure completely shattered. Someone's framing him. He wouldn't, we're a noble house. Why would he? Because he wanted you to be Luna, Theo said quietly. He wanted his daughter to be queen, and Mia was in the way. Seraphine looked like she'd been struck. You think my father orchestrated all of this? The kidnapping, the torture, the memory suppression, all so I could marry the Alpha King? No one answered. But the looks on their faces said everything. Where is Lord Ashwood now? Liam asked. That's the problem, Tobias said grimly. He left the palace 3 days ago. Said he was returning to his estate. But the trackers just confirmed, he never arrived. He's vanished. And the conclave's letter? Liam's hands clenched into fists. What's their ultimatum? They want Mia returned within 3 days, Tobias said. Or they'll consider it an act of war and come take her themselves. Mia's face had gone white. They can't. You wouldn't. Never. Liam turned to her, and his eyes blazed with absolute conviction. I will burn this world to the ground before I let them take you again. But the law, Elder Margaret began. I don't care about their laws. Liam's roar shook the chamber. She's my mate. My Luna. And anyone who tries to take her will learn exactly why you don't threaten an Alpha King's bond. They have an army, Tobias said quietly. The entire Shadow Peak conclave. Mercenaries, rogues, wolves who don't answer to any pack law. If they come here, it will be a bloodbath. Then let them come. Liam's voice was ice and fury. We'll be ready. But even as he said it, he knew the truth. They weren't ready. The conclave had been planning this for 2 years, maybe longer. They had the advantage of surprise, of resources, of knowing exactly what buttons to push. And worst of all, they had proof of legal purchase. In the eyes of neutral territory law, Mia wasn't a kidnapping victim. She was stolen property. And the conclave was coming to collect. Midnight found Liam alone on the palace ramparts, staring out at the snow-covered forest beyond the walls. He'd spent the evening preparing for war, mobilizing the guard, activating emergency protocols, sending for reinforcements from allied packs. But it wouldn't be enough. The conclave had numbers, experience, and the law on their side. For the first time in his life, Liam felt truly helpless. You shouldn't be out here alone. He turned to find Mia approaching, wrapped in a heavy cloak against the cold. She looked small and fragile in the darkness, but her eyes held something new, determination. I could say the same to you, Liam said. It's not safe. Nowhere's safe anymore. Mia joined him at the rampart's edge, close enough that he could feel her warmth but still maintaining that careful distance. I've been thinking about what Elder Tobias said. About the law. About me being property. You're not. Let me finish. She held up a hand. I've been thinking about why they sent me back. They could have kept me hidden forever, but instead they returned me right when you were moving on with someone else. Why? Liam's brow furrowed. To destabilize the kingdom. To create chaos. No. Mia shook her head. To create a choice. Either you'd reject me and marry Seraphine, proving that mate bonds can be overcome, which would destroy the foundation of pack law. Or you'd take me back, and they'd use their legal claim to start a war that would weaken your kingdom either way. Her voice steadied. I'm not just a victim. I'm a weapon. And they're using me to destroy you. The realization hit Liam like a physical blow. She was right. This had never been about information or experiments. It had been about creating an impossible situation where the Alpha King would lose no matter what he chose. So what do we do? He asked quietly. Mia was silent for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I leave. Asterisk asterisk no asterisk asterisk dot. The word came out as a growl. Absolutely not. If I'm gone, they have no claim, Mia said, her voice stronger now. No weapon to use against you. You can tell them I ran away, that you don't know where I am. They can't start a war over a missing asset. I am not losing you again. Liam grabbed her shoulders, the first time he'd touched her in days, and she gasped at the sudden contact. Do you understand me? I spent 2 years believing you were dead. 2 years where I could barely breathe without you. And now that you're back, you want me to just let you walk away. To save your kingdom, yes. Mia's eyes flashed with something fierce. I may not remember loving you, but I know what duty looks like. And right now, my duty is to not be the reason your people suffer. Your duty is here. With me. Liam's control was cracking, emotion pouring through. With your pack. With a mate who's a stranger. The words exploded out of her. Don't you understand? I want to feel what you're feeling. I want to look at you and know that you're mine and I'm yours and nothing else matters. But I can't. And watching you love someone who doesn't exist anymore is killing me just as much as it's killing you. They stood there, breathing hard, the space between them charged with 2 years of pain and loss and desperate longing. And then Liam felt it. A flicker. Faint but unmistakable. The mate bond, sending a pulse of warmth through his chest, and for the first time since she'd returned, he felt something echo back from Mia's side. Her eyes widened. What was that? You felt it? Liam's voice was rough with hope. Yes. Like a thread. Pulling. Mia's hand went to her heart, confusion and wonder warring on her face. Is that the bond? Yes. Liam's hands were still on her shoulders, and he didn't dare move, didn't dare break whatever fragile connection was forming. It's still there, Mia. It's always been there. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I want to remember. I want to remember so badly it hurts. Tell me something about us. Something real. Liam's throat tightened. The first time I saw you, you were arguing with a merchant about overpriced fruit. You were so fierce, so ready to fight for what was right even over something as small as 3 copper coins. And I thought, this woman is going to be trouble. A ghost of a smile touched Mia's lips. Was I? The best kind of trouble. His voice softened. You challenged me. Made me laugh. Saw through all the armor and politics to the man underneath. And when I asked you to be my mate, you said yes before I even finished the question. I did. You did. Said you'd known from the first moment we danced, even though you stepped on my feet. And then something shifted in Mia's expression, a flicker of recognition, of memory breaking through the darkness. Blue coat, she whispered. You wore a blue coat with silver buttons and you smelled like pine and, her breath caught. Liam. The way she said his name, not with polite distance but with sudden, dawning recognition, made his heart stop. I'm here, he said. I'm right here. I remember dancing, she breathed, wonder and pain mixing in her voice. I remember your hand on my waist and thinking I never wanted the song to end. It doesn't have to. Liam's forehead dropped to hers, the gesture so natural, so right. We can have 1,000 more dances. 1,000 more everything. If you'll let me, if you'll try. Yes. The word was barely audible. Yes. And when their lips met, it wasn't with the passion of lovers reunited. It was tentative, careful, a question and an answer all at once. But the mate bond roared to life between them. 2 years of silence shattered as the connection snapped back into place, flooding them both with warmth and recognition and the bone-deep certainty that this, was home. Mia gasped against his mouth, pulling back just enough to stare at him with wide, tear-filled eyes. I feel it, she whispered. The bond. It's like coming up for air after drowning. You're not drowning anymore. Liam cupped her face gently. And I'm never letting go again. For one perfect moment, everything else fell away, the conclave, the ultimatum, the traitor still hiding in their midst. There was only this, 2 souls finding each other across an impossible distance. And then Theo's voice shattered the moment. Liam. They're here. Both of them spun toward the courtyard, where torches blazed to life across the palace grounds. And beyond the gates, an army of shadows waited in the darkness. The Shadow Peak conclave had come 3 days early. And they'd brought war with them. The conclave's army stretched across the palace grounds like a plague, 200 rogues, mercenaries, and wolves who'd sold their loyalty for gold. At their front stood a woman in a black cloak, the crescent moon clasp gleaming at her throat. That's her, Mia breathed, memories flooding back in a torrent. The woman from the gardens. She's the one who took me. Liam's growl was feral. Stay behind me. No. Mia's hand caught his arm, and the bond pulsed between them, stronger now, awakening more with each passing second. This is my fight too. The palace guard formed defensive lines, but they were outnumbered 3-1. Theo stood at Liam's right, his beta power radiating outward. On the left, surprisingly, stood Lady Seraphine, her face set with grim determination. I failed to speak up once, she said quietly. I won't make that mistake again. The woman with the crescent clasp stepped forward, her voice carrying across the courtyard with unnatural clarity. Alpha King Liam. We've come to collect what belongs to us. Luna Mia belongs to no one but herself, Liam called back, his alpha command making the very air vibrate. And if you think I'm handing her over, you're welcome to try taking her. The woman smiled, cold and calculating. We have legal documentation. Proof of purchase. Signed by a noble lord of your own kingdom. Lord Ashwood is a traitor, Liam snarled. And his actions don't represent pack law. But they represent neutral territory law. And that's where the transaction occurred. She gestured to the army behind her. We can settle this with paperwork in courts that will take years, during which time we'll siege your palace, starve your people, and watch your kingdom crumble. Or, her smile widened, you can hand over one woman and spare everyone the suffering. Murmurs rippled through both armies. Liam could feel it, the doubt, the fear, the cold calculation. One life weighed against thousands. But before he could respond, Mia stepped forward. I'll go with you, she said clearly. Asterisk asterisk no asterisk asterisk. Liam grabbed her arm, but she turned to face him, and what he saw in her eyes stopped him cold. Not fear. Not surrender. Strategy. Trust me, she whispered, too low for anyone else to hear. Then louder, to the conclave, I'll return willingly. But I have one condition. The woman's eyebrows rose. You're not in a position to negotiate. Aren't I? Mia's voice strengthened. You went through a lot of trouble to study the mate bond between an alpha king and his Luna. 2 years of experiments. Observations. You wanted to know if the bond could be broken, suppressed, overcome. She paused. I'm proof that it can't. Even with my memories gone, even believing Liam was a stranger, the bond pulled us back together. Your experiment failed. Something flickered across the woman's face. Annoyance. Maybe even respect. But there's one thing you didn't test, Mia continued. What happens when a Luna chooses to reject the bond? Not through force or memory suppression, but through genuine free will. That's the data you really want, isn't it? Proof that the mate bond can be overcome through choice alone. The courtyard went deadly silent. Mia, what are you doing? Liam's voice was strangled. She ignored him, her eyes locked on the conclave leader. I'll come with you willingly. I'll participate in your experiments. But in exchange, you leave this kingdom alone. Forever. No war. No siege. No retaliation. And if you can't reject the bond, the woman asked. Then you'll have proof that true mates are genuinely unbreakable, which is just as valuable for your research. Mia's chin lifted. Either way, you get what you want. And hundreds of innocent wolves don't have to die. The woman considered this, her eyes calculating. Then she nodded. Agreed. Asterisk asterisk no asterisk asterisk. Liam's roar shook the palace walls. His wolf was going insane, every instinct screaming to grab Mia and never let go. I won't allow this. You don't have a choice. Mia turned to him, and her eyes were filled with tears, but also with absolute certainty. This is the only way to save your people. I don't care about, Liam started. Yes, you do. She reached up, cupping his face with trembling hands. You're an alpha king. Your duty is to your pack, always. Even when it destroys you. I remember that now. I remember everything. The bond between them blazed like fire, and Liam felt it, her memories flooding back, her love pouring through their connection with enough force to bring him to his knees. You remember, he whispered. I remember. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I remember loving you. I remember our vows. I remember that being your mate means protecting your kingdom, even from myself. Mia, please. She kissed him. Hard and desperate and final. I love you, she whispered against his lips. I never stopped. Not even when I couldn't remember. And that's how I know the bond can't be broken. Not by them. Not by anything. Then she stepped back, turning toward the conclave. Wait. A new voice rang out across the courtyard. Everyone turned to see Lord Ashwood stumbling forward from the darkness, his clothes torn, his face bloodied. And behind him, dragged by palace guards, were 3 elders. It wasn't just me. Ashwood shouted desperately. The elders helped. They wanted Liam weakened, distracted, easier to control. They orchestrated everything. Chaos erupted. The 3 elders tried to run but were seized by guards. Theo's eyes blazed with fury as he pieced it together. They wanted a puppet king, Theo snarled. Someone broken enough to let the council rule through him. So they arranged for Mia's kidnapping, thinking it would destroy you. But it didn't, Liam said, his voice deadly calm even as rage burned through him. It just made me more dangerous. The woman with the crescent clasp looked genuinely surprised by this development. Well. This complicates things. No, Mia said firmly. It simplifies them. These traitors worked outside pack law. They sold me to you illegally, which means your purchase documentation is void. You have no legal claim to me. The woman's expression hardened. We still have an army. And we have proof of conspiracy that involves neutral territory mercenaries attacking a sovereign pack. Liam stepped forward, every inch the Alpha King. Which means you just violated the very neutral territory laws you were hiding behind. And now? Now it's not about paperwork. It's about war. His eyes flashed gold. And trust me, you don't want war with me. The threat hung in the air, backed by the full weight of Alpha Command. The woman stared at him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she laughed. You're right. We don't. She turned to her army. Stand down. What? One of the mercenaries looked confused. But we came for research, she interrupted. And we just got the most valuable data of all, proof that mate bonds can survive memory suppression, betrayal, and 2 years of separation. Her eyes found Mia. Your love story is going to make us very rich when we sell it to the right buyers. Get off my lands, Liam snarled. Before I decide that letting you live was a mistake. The woman smiled, touched her crescent clasp in a mocking salute, and melted back into the darkness. Her army followed, dissolving into the night like they'd never been there at all. Leaving only the traitors behind. 3 months later, spring arrived at the palace. The trial of Lord Ashwood and the 3 conspirator elders had been swift and absolute. They'd been stripped of titles, lands, and pack membership, the worst punishment a wolf could receive. Banished to live as rogues in the territories they'd once tried to control. Lady Seraphine had been quietly pardoned for her family's crimes and had chosen to leave the kingdom, seeking a fresh start where she wasn't haunted by almost-was memories. Before she left, she'd spoken privately with Mia. "I'm sorry," Seraphine had said. "For not speaking up. For being too consumed by jealousy to do what was right." "You did what was right when it mattered most," Mia had replied gently. "That's what I'll remember." They'd parted as friends, or at least, as two women who understood what it meant to love the same man and lose him in different ways. Now, Mia stood in the royal gardens where flower beds bloomed in riots of color, her hand resting on her stomach where new life grew. The healers had confirmed it yesterday, she was carrying Liam's child. "There you are." Liam's arms wrapped around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. The mate bond hummed between them, stronger than ever, fully healed, fully restored. "Here I am," Mia agreed, leaning back into his warmth. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything." She turned in his arms to face him. 2 years ago, I was taken from these gardens. I lost everything, my memories, my life, myself. And somehow I still found my way back to you. "You fought your way back," Liam corrected, his hand covering hers on her stomach. "You never gave up. Not when they tried to break you, not when they tried to erase me from your mind, not when they tried to use you as a weapon. We fought our way back," Mia amended. "You never stopped looking for me. Never stopped loving me, even when you thought I was dead." "I couldn't stop," Liam admitted. "The bond wouldn't let me. My wolf wouldn't let me. My heart wouldn't let me." They stood in comfortable silence, surrounded by flowers that had survived winter to bloom again. "Do you think she'll come back?" Mia asked. "The woman with the crescent clasp. The conclave." "Probably." Liam's jaw tightened. "They know too much about us now. About our bond, our weaknesses. Then we'll be ready." Mia's hand found his. "Together." "Together," Liam agreed. Then, softer, "How are the memories? Any gaps still?" "A few." Mia smiled. "But I'm making new ones every day. Better ones. Ones that can't be taken away." "Like this?" Liam pulled her closer. "Exactly like this." When he kissed her, it wasn't with the desperate intensity of those first reunited moments. It was gentle, certain, and filled with the promise of thousands more kisses to come. Behind them, the palace stood strong, its traitors purged, its Luna restored, its future secured. "I have something for you," Liam said, pulling back and reaching into his pocket. "I've been waiting for the right moment." He held out a silver pendant, a wolf and a moon intertwined, intricate and beautiful. "It's tradition," he explained. "When a mated pair survives a trial that should have broken them, the Alpha commissions a unity pendant. It's a symbol that your bond was tested by fire and came out stronger." Mia's eyes filled with tears as he fastened it around her neck. "It's beautiful. You're beautiful." Liam's thumb brushed away her tears. "You're brave and fierce, and you saved an entire kingdom by being willing to sacrifice yourself for it." "I was never going to let them break us," Mia said firmly. "The bond is unbreakable. I proved that. We proved that." She smiled, the expression lighting up her entire face. "So what happens now? After everything we've been through, the loss, the pain, the war almost started, what comes next?" Liam looked at her, at the life growing inside her, at the gardens blooming around them, at the kingdom they'd fought so hard to protect. "Now." He smiled. "Now we live. We raise our child. We strengthen our pack. We love each other through whatever comes next." His voice softened. We get our happily ever after. Even after everything. Especially after everything. Liam pulled her close, and the mate bond pulsed between them like a heartbeat. The best love stories aren't the ones without struggle. They're the ones where two people fight through hell to find each other on the other side. Mia rose on her toes to kiss him again, and in that moment, surrounded by spring flowers and sunlight, it was easy to believe that the darkness was truly behind them. I love you, she whispered. I love you, Liam replied. Forever and always. Forever and always, Mia agreed. And in the distance, a wolf howled, not in mourning, but in celebration. The Alpha King had his Luna back. The kingdom had its true rulers. And against all odds, love had won.